The Nature Boy also shared the list of current stars he loves to watch. It included his daughter, Charlotte Flair, MJF, Randy Orton, and more. So he's picking like each of the major promotions here. He mentions AJ Styles as well, who he also feuded with in TNA Impact. They were both there at the same time. MJF, the Young Bucks, Darby Allin, Orange Cassidy. He's really got the three major promotions covered here. The three modern major promotions covered here. Leaving aside that these are just Flair's favorites, who would you put on the list of favorite wrestlers that you like to watch, or maybe best wrestlers nowadays that you would want to watch, John?
Well, it's funny because he wrestled at a time when the women's were pretty unwatchable. So you can put women on this list too now that are really good.
Sure.
I'll go with my list. Got to start with AEW with MJF for sure.
There you go.
I like their champ Swerve Strickland a lot. I think it's pretty cool to see I like him because he isn't your stereotypical baby face that you'd get in the WWE maybe a decade back. That's fairly clean cut and like doing a lot of the right things, like John Cena-esque, where Swerve Strickland has a bit of an edge to him. He does a lot of, he's bleeding all over the place sometimes. He's going to people's houses, and he actually threatened a baby child in one of his like promo segments where he goes to Hangman Adam Page's house. He's like, I know where your son lives at. And he goes to like this the bed and goes to where the son's at. And it's like, yeah, there's our hero. So there's like some elements of him that's not squeaky clean. And I like that about Swerve Strickland. Maybe shifting to WWE. It's a Don't Bury the Lead original. L.A. Knight.
Right.
And
that's right. His coming out party was our first live stream back at the end of September 2022. Yeah.
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 Yeah. You just say, yeah. Everyone just says, yeah. He's like super over. And then you could even say, like, with the women's division, WWE, it might be more stacked at the men's division. Maybe I'll throw, let's see, from the women's division lately, who I've liked is Bianca Belair. And this is like recently because she has to do a lot. And what I think it's just so impressive that she's doing so much. How about you? How about modern day wrestlers that you're liking?
Favorites that I've had to watch. LA Knight's going to be there. Yes. It's too bad that Charlotte is hurt right now. So is Rhea Ripley. They are always entertaining. They have what I thought was match of the year last year at WrestleMania 39.
Right.
So they're great to watch. I enjoy the heck out of Gunther and Sami Zayn.
Oh, Gunther, I forgot. How could I forget?
Gunther, because he's been on Raw for more than a year. We don't get to see him a lot. Same thing with Sami Zayn. I think they're fantastic. They're always entertaining. I would also mention, I think Io Sky has really grown on me. I didn't know if she could be a singles performer, but it turns out that she's a fantastic wrestler. She's a little on the small side, but just to watch a match with Io Sky in it, it's she's really, really elevated her game as a singles wrestler. So I think that's going to be a lot of fun. And I do want to mention someone else who you've talked about a lot to me. Will Ospreay.
Yeah.
What do you think about Will Ospreay being on that list? You mentioned a couple of AEW guys, MJF and Swerve Strickland. Where would you put Will Ospreay? He gets a great write-up here in the Metro. I think he is from the UK, isn't he? So this is kind of some hometown or at least home country coverage for him, the Metro out of UK. Talking about his autism superpower. Help me become the best wrestler in the world. Would you put him up near in that best wrestler in the world conversation, Will Ospreay?
Yo, absolutely. He's been so over in AEW, and he is really, really hyper athletic, is the way I would put it. he just does all of the stuff that you would see like Ricochet, but way more over from a personality standpoint. Like he just goes out
Okay.
there and he starts screaming and he's just being himself, and it's just like, wow, this really works. It's with the accent. He's always saying "bruv." It's just such a great gimmick. Instead of like, man, hey, bruv, and it's like
Bruv.
BRUV is a really good catchphrase. Instead of brother,
Is he
bruv.
shortening Hulk Hogan's brother to bruv?
It is basically the Hogan thing. Instead of saying brother, he says bruv. And it's like, oh, that's a good spin on it. And I think it's something that the kids are saying these days, so that's helpful. No, but he's good
Great
on the
photos in here too. You found this article and sent it to me. Some great photos in here from that the Metro was able to put up here. Then they have a little section on what is autism, because they were talking about him having autism, struggling to verbalize how you feel, for instance, taking things literally. How is he as a promo? Because I guess if he was in a spontaneous conversation, this thing here may be a problem for him. How does he come off as a promo when you've seen him?
great, really very good,
Okay.
very electric, and very like. But it's a little bit more of the 80s style promo where the guys are screaming and they're all fired up and they're just
Okay.
but it feels a little bit more off the cuff, which is helpful. It's not like he's saying different lines necessarily. He usually goes out there with Renee, boy, uh,
Renee Moxley, good.
yeah, Renee Moxley. Yeah, let's call her that. Um, she goes out with Renee, and she really puts him in a good spot. I have to say, she does a great job with a lot of the workers. But yeah, so from a promo perspective, I think he's really good.
Excellent. It says here having a very keen interest in certain activities or subject. Yeah, if he has that for pro wrestling, that would help. He seems very crisp in his matches, right? I mean, this is a guy who gets the fundamentals, even though he may not be a traditional style pro wrestler. He seems like a high flyer the way you've described him, and some of the clips I've seen. He seems very, or would you say he's a very precise athlete in there as far as what he's doing? He's not a guy who's just all over the place and sloppy.
No, he's not sloppy at all,
Okay.
which is so nuts about him. He's very physical. He's very stiff, and he's very physical, very stiff, and he's just hyper athletic. Again, like Ricochet 2.0, you know.
Okay.
But there's some stuff with him, and I thought this article was really interesting because everyone's talks about autism now. Like it's
Mhm.
not like this death sentence. Let's just say not, where you're like, oh, you have autism, you can't do anything. It's like he's probably the best wrestler in the world. You could argue he's the best wrestler in the world, and he's openly autistic, and he's like talking about it,
Mm.
which is interesting. I had like no idea, but to kind of overcome that and really to utilize some of the aspects of autism that are different than, like, let's just say an average person, but lets them utilize a different strength within themselves. It's just a fascinating read, I thought.
What championships does he currently hold, if any? Are you up on what belts they've put on him recently?
Oh boy. So he's got the international championship. AEW has a really bad problem. Everyone has a belt. It's a
Okay,
little bit
this
like
may
the
be it.
Oprah
Here's
Winfrey.
the national champion.
Yeah, it's a little bit like the Oprah Winfrey show. Like, you get a belt, and you get a belt, and you get a belt, and you get a belt. But yeah, that's the thing with AEW. So having a belt in AEW isn't, they don't do a great job with like protecting like what the belt means. They just all seem to have them. But
All right.
um he's been on their like main events for Dynamites. He's ripped it up. He wrestled Daniel Garcia this past main event or at on Dynamite, and has been really good. And he might have had the match of the year with Daniel Bryanson.
Really? Okay. Where was that? Was that an
Or
AEW thing or one of their cross promotions?
Brian Danielson, excuse me.
Yes.
It was no, it was their pay-per-view. It was a pay-per-view maybe one or two pay-per-views ago. I forget which one it was specifically.
Okay.
Yeah, they completely tore it up, the two of them.
Okay. Very good. Hey, Will Ospreay, put him on that list here. Here's a Will Ospreay segue for you. This also comes to us from WrestleZone. Billy Gunn talking about maybe having an retirement match. He also talked about having a couple of stress fractures in his back. I'm not sure how that happens. Is he talking about vertebrae, tailbone, like whatever it is? That sounds very serious. But he was mentioning when he finally retires, maybe he'd like it to be Will Ospreay who retires him. Do you think Billy Gunn could get in there at his age from what you've seen in AEW, assuming that his back is healed enough for him to do it and he doesn't have a broken back? Do you think he could get in there with Will Ospreay and have a fun, entertaining retirement match?
Yes, absolutely.
Okay.
I don't even know that he should retire. That's how good he looks right now.
Okay.
He has done. He's unbelievable when he's in there, and he lines up in the tag matches. He is probably the biggest guy out there. At his age, he's still just jacked, crazy jacked. It's nuts. But
right now he's saying I have no problem being the Acclaimed sidekick. So him being a mouthpiece, almost a manager, like an older brother in the group, the voice of wisdom, perhaps. So he has no problem doing that. But you're saying that he can still get in there when he has to and compete physically and not embarrass himself, give himself a good showing. Okay. Very good. Billy Gunn. We remember him. He was with Badass Billy Gunn and the
Road
Dogg. They were part of Degeneration X. Well, that was probably what he's best known for, but still going strong in AEW. Excellent work.
Yeah, he's done really good in AEW.
Moving right along, Shinsuke Nakamura showed up at UFC 303. He made an appearance. He accompanied Soroya Ray in his match there. I'm not going to play this because we get flagged when we play other people's videos. But there is Shinsuke. I'm guessing that is Ray Soraya there. Apparently, Ray Soraya won the match. Came out to the WWE Superstars theme music for UFC 303. Do you think, does this seem like it's something that was helped by UFC and WWE having the same parent company? Would this have been more difficult to pass off before the merger than it is now? What say you from a fan perspective?
Yeah, I think it would have been more difficult only because at certain points UFC and WWE viewed each other as competitors.
Yeah.
So when they were competitors, maybe that wasn't so clean. But now that they're owned by the same parent company, I'm sure it's going to be like they're going to want them to do all kinds of stuff. We've seen some UFC guys at WWE events too. So probably a good way to get a payday if you're, let's say, for example, you're in the UFC, you don't have a lot of fights coming up. You want to get a payday. You want to get something out of being on that roster. And then same thing with Shinsuke Nakamura. Haven't seen a lot of him. So usually when you don't see a lot of the guys, they're doing something, right? They're doing something within the company that's not wrestling related.
It gives them a chance to get on TV, get on social media. They're in the news for some reason. Yeah, it can't hurt. It's good publicity. The WWE superstar mentioned enjoying the atmosphere at the UFC event. Nakamura also noted that he was once approached to fight in the USA, but remained faithful to, at the time, New Japan Pro Wrestling. However, he desired to have at least one fight in the UFC. We've seen some wrestlers cross over into mixed martial arts and vice versa, and some guys try and straddle the line between both for a while simultaneously. Probably most notably Brock Lesnar for a while, but also Bobby Lashley had more than a
Yeah.
dozen MMA battles in, I think it was Bellator, while he was also actively wrestling for TNA Impact. CM Punk has tried it going in that direction. Of course, there were early mixed martial artists like Dan Severn and Ken Shamrock who came over into wrestling. Tank Abbott in WCW. Would you like to see Shinsuke Nakamura give it a go in UFC if, of course, he wants to fulfill that goal of his? Do you think he'd be pretty decent?
Well, they have had, some people that have been wildly successful at it, like Brock
Mhm.
Lesnar, and there have been people that were just awful at it, like CM Punk. CM Punk is not a athlete. Like, he's not an athletic person.
Not
So,
like that.
yes, he's got no background. They put him in the UFC. He's got like a blue belt in jiu-jitsu, which is like jiu-jitsu. It's kind of something old wrestlers do after work now. It's not really.
Okay.
It's not necessarily the. I would put it like this: with CM Punk's lack of athleticism, coupled with no experience at all with wrestling or fighting or anything, to throw him in the UFC was a sin. But if Shinsuke Nakamura has some previous training and has actually been in fights in lower levels and won, then it would
Mhm.
make sense. But if he's just a guy that is an actor, that's not such a great idea. Like like Sylvester Stallone shouldn't box. He's an actor.
He played a boxer in a movie. That doesn't mean he can actually be a boxer. Yes. Wonderful. That analysis of CM Punk's athleticism brought to you by Drew McIntyre. Very good.
Oh, yeah, right. I know that just sounds like something Drew would probably target.
No, I love it. I love it. It's fantastic. Yes, we hope that Shinsuke, if he decides to do this, veers far away from the CM Punk end of the spectrum.
Mm-hmm.
There. Uh, Speaking of wrestlers who have been in the public eye outside of the wrestling ring, Mercedes Monae, we've talked about her before being at the Celtics NBA Finals clinching game and getting some good social media views out of that. TMZ Sports caught up with her again. I am not playing this.
Mm-hmm.
She, in this very brief person on the street interview, talked about how many opportunities she has at AEW, and they tried to bait her into saying, "Are you going back to WWE? Would you like to do that?" And she's like, "No, I see so many opportunities in AEW." You've watched AEW. Has her appearance and I guess long-term commitment to AEW, has it been a hit so far, or a miss, or somewhere in between?
I've liked it so far because she's
Good.
had with AEW, their weakness is the women's division.
Okay.
For sure. And I think that at one point years ago, the women's division wasn't as important. But I
Mm.
think with the success with the WWE and their women's division, they actually have women that can wrestle matches. So it's been a big need that they filled with
Okay.
having a woman that can that's good in the ring. She had a great intro in Boston. She's had a really good match. I think probably the best match of the pay per view with Willow Nightingale and Mercedes Monae.
Okay. Very
I
good.
I think that it's been a good relationship between the two of them, and of course TMZ is just trying to get her to say something silly. But
Sure. And of course, Mercedes Monae has the belt with her. We've noticed this recently. People bringing the belt places. It's Liv Morgan and Mercedes Monae. They're just going places with the belt.
I like it.
Yeah, me too. I
You
like it.
feel a little bit like they're in their gimmick more when they have the
Yeah.
belt. It's like, yeah, I just carry this around because I'm the champ. Like,
Yeah.
she looks like, look at her, like with the hair, and it's not like she's just in a hoodie and got her hair back. No, it's like she has the necklace. It says Monet.
Yeah, right?
She's 100% doing the gimmick.
She is decked out in bling. She's got the belt. This is fantastic. Coming soon.net. Mercedes Monae and apparently cross paths with Shane McMahon. And so this, of course, starts the rumor mill. Is Shane McMahon going to AEW? I mean, the McMahon family is basically out of the WWE corporation at this point. I mean, Paul Levesque by marriage is in the family, but Vince, Linda, Shane, even Stephanie. Stephanie made a brief appearance at WrestleMania just to talk people up, but the other McMahons are kind of gone. Do you, especially after being seen with AEW star Mercedes Monae, growing speculation that Shane McMahon is potential involvement with AEW began with Conrad Thompson, host of Grilling JR podcast, mutual friends, talking about saying that he had sources that Shane was reaching out to several AEW wrestlers. Apparently, he and Mercedes Monae crossed paths in LaGuardia Airport in New York City. So they were seen chatting together. Perhaps they go back to when Shane was still involved in WWE, when Mercedes Monae was there as Sasha Banks. I don't know, but this is intriguing stuff. I mean, everybody's fair game, right? I mean, Shane McMahon could show up in AEW, right? What do you think? Tell us in the chat if you're watching live. Tell us in the comments if you're watching the archived recording of this over at the YouTube channel. And please like us there on YouTube if you want to get all of our best stuff, including these live streams.
Sorry, just I coughed, so I muted. Yeah, I'll tell you what. It would be completely insane to see Shane McMahon there. But now that I'm looking at the scenario, it's like he doesn't have a huge affiliation with WWE. And it's not like Vince stepped down and said goodbye and, you know, he got like a big ceremony. It was like, no, he got it canned, you know?
Yeah.
So ultimately, it would be really, really interesting to see what they would do with Shane McMahon, or just to have McMahon there in general at AEW would be really crazy. I'd imagine that Shane McMahon has almost an infinite amount of money, so I don't think it's going to be a financial thing. It's more like, hey, you want to like get back into wrestling, do something with wrestling, you can do it in AEW.
Tony Khan has stated that Shane is always welcome in All Elite Wrestling, and with McMahon recently spotted alongside their star Mercedes Monae, the likelihood of Shane coming to All Elite Wrestling appears to be increasing. So this is comingsoon.net, just jumping on the rumor mill here, and
yeah,
that's cheap heat, right? That's up our alley.
This is some cheap heat. I did see like this kind of posted on Reddit, and people were like, yeah, I don't know if this is really true though. Like people will think like this is all hearsay and rumor. Yeah. The only thing that gives it any legitimacy is JR talking about it, and then Tony Khan being asked and saying like, yeah, he could come. Like, I don't know.
He's welcome.
He's extending an olive branch, but it'd probably be more on Shane than Tony, right? Why wouldn't Tony Khan want him versus why would Shane bother?
Yes. Like a risk reward for everybody. Big upside for Tony to do it if the price were right. You wonder what the upside is for Shane McMahon to do it.
Yeah.
So that is a good question. SmackDown this evening for July 5th is, I believe, the first one without Kayla Braxton. She said her goodbyes at the last SmackDown of June. I love my WWE family. Thank you guys so much. Of course, one of the backstage interviewers. I'm overwhelmed. I will miss you all, but we'll see each other again. Gave a nice Instagram send-off as well, thanking everybody. Banter with Paul Heyman became the stuff of legend. Yes, it was. That was always fun. Yeah. She was always a good straight person for Paul Heyman to be his usual Paul Heyman self. Some good photos. There's Paul Levesque, of course, the man with 3 H's, who is rumored to have joined us on our live stream at some point. But excellent
here.
Stuff here.
Is this? I wonder. So she's retiring?
She's, I think, going off to do other things. So she's just kind of retiring from WWE, it seems. She's still young, has a career ahead of her, but apparently that was her swan song as a WWE on-air talent, as in a backstage interviewer, and we've noted, you especially have noted the increase in WWE's production value the last few months, and some of it has to do with their how they do backstage stuff. And people like Kayla Braxton are part of that. Kayla Becker, um, she's she's part of that. Having good people who can act as that straight person backstage to let the talent play off of them in the interviews.
Yeah.
Uh, she did her job. She did it well, and the people she worked with seemed to have appreciated her.
Maybe
So
she has
all
a
best to
better
her.
maybe she has a better opportunity. Maybe the pay's not so great there. Combined with being on the road 24/7, that's got to just be. I think it takes a special person to want to be
Mhm.
on the road constantly and be in city to city and then performing like that.
Yep.
So I get the reason, like, oh, it seems like a pretty sweet gig, but then you're also like, you're sleeping in different hotels every week. So
Yep.
maybe
New
she,
city every Friday, right?
yeah, right.
It's like it's the rock star life in a sense. There you go.
Uh,
So very good for her. Rob Van Dam. This comes to us from WrestleZone. Rob Van Dam wants to face Christian Cage, Adam Copeland, or Chris Jericho. I don't know if this is sort of a retirement match for him, a send off, but what do you think about these older wrestlers wanting to mix it up, maybe in a send off with another older wrestler from their generation rather than with some of the younger guys? Because Sting, when he got his send off, Darby Allin was his tag team partner. He faced the Young Bucks. So it was young guys in there with him. We just mentioned a few stories ago Billy Gunn saying that he wants to get in there with Will Ospreay maybe for his retirement match, wrestle with one of the younger guys. What do you think of sort of these nostalgia matches with wrestler from a previous generation facing another wrestler from a previous generation,
they should
even
do
though
them
these guys
more.
are still wrestling? What would you think
Yeah,
about that?
I think they should do them more because it's one of these
Okay.
things where even if you want to look from like a realism standpoint, when Rob Van Dam goes in there against a giant in his mid-20s, you're like,
Mhm.
oh, okay, well, I guess you could always look toward experience. But he's a bit older, and then if he matches up with Jericho, adversely, you're like, oh no, these guys both have the same body types. They're older. It makes a little bit more sense. And then also you have to look at it too, like there's something about nostalgia that's a big pop in pro wrestling. So if you
Yes.
have two old guys kind of wrestling each other, it's always a good opportunity for that. We see it all the time with like uh well, we just talked about Sting. We were talking about him, but like Sting and
Mhm.
Triple H at WrestleMania, that was a big nostalgia thing with with NWO and DX.
Some say too much nostalgia.
A little too much, yes.
Right.
Okay, maybe that's a bad example.
No, I
Um,
get you. It was Triple H and the Undertaker who had at least two WrestleMania matches, right? It was supposed to be kind of closing off that generation, that era,
yes, and
maybe 10 years ago or so. So I know exactly what you mean. RVD, his quote here: "You put me up against a young new guy, they get a rub. It's a good chance for them. I can still roll with them. That's cool."
mhm,
But if we had, say, RVD versus Edge, RVD versus Christian, RVD versus Jericho, I've had some outstanding matches with all of those guys, and I have no doubt that if we were to get in a ring again, it would be outstanding, and they wouldn't be one of the new young guys that doesn't quite follow the same rule book that I do. You change
mhm,
a few things, do a few things that wouldn't be acceptable before, they've adapted. Uh, there's something to, if both guys can still work or everybody involved can still work, there's something to these sort of generation matches where
mhm,
you see guys from a previous generation still get in there and be athletic
mhm.
and tell a good story. There still is something to that, isn't there?
Yeah, for sure.
Excellent. Okay, which one of those three would be your favorite? RVD versus Adam Copeland, RVD versus Christian Cage, RVD versus Chris Jericho. Pick one of them. You can only have one. Which one would you want?
Oh, well, I'll go ahead and say Christian Cage.
Okay.
I think that Christian Cage is on fire and has been still from a personality and a character standpoint. And then Rob Van Dam is just such a natural baby face, right? Like, I
Okay.
don't think he's ever worked heel, or he should never work heel.
Hmm.
It's just something very likable stoner guy, right? How about you? Who would you pick?
I think that's a great call for what you said, that if RVD is going to be in there as a babyface, Christian Cage is doing some of the best work of his career right now as this awesome, like James Bond villain type heel.
Mm-hmm.
So I think your analysis was spot on. I second everything you said. I think that would be great. Yeah,
Yeah.
I'd go for RVD versus Christian Cage.
Nice.
Shout out to everyone in the chat. There you go. Thank you.
Thanks, brother. Appreciate it, man. We'll check out your channel too.
AKA the Sport Entertainment Guy. Wonderful. Glad to have you aboard here in the live chat there. Where was that coming in from? Because we're live streaming on YouTube, Twitch, Twitter.
He's on YouTube as well.
He is on YouTube. Excellent. Thank you.
Well, and I'll check out your channel when we're done live streaming here, man. Really appreciate it, brother.
That's it for Cheap Heat. It was inexpensive. It was as warm as a 95-degree early July humid day in southern New Jersey that we're getting right now. It's Cheap Heat.
Cheap Heat.
Yes. Sprinkle that stuff everywhere.